Good afternoon, students. So, we will continue with our previous CNS class, that is Synapse. All of, so that we can continue class. Am I audible now? Yes. Continue with our previous CNS class, that is Synapse. Okay. Fifty-seven got there. It is going to start. 65 students are there only. Okay. So we have changed our strategy to looking for completing the endocrinal system, so that when there will be completion of some anatomical portion of central nervous system, then we will also complete the physiological aspect of the central nervous system. And meanwhile, you concentrate on your endocrine and gastrointestinal tract, so that in your exam, which will be at May end, all portion will be there except this central nervous system and spatial senses. So our target is to complete by this month all portion of physiology except CNS and spatial senses. So our target is very much clear, that we will complete whole of the physiology syllabus except CNS and your spatial senses. So in June or in June and July, we will complete your whole of the central nervous system, spatial senses, and remaining practical portion. So that is our strategy. I hope all might be attending. Yeah, woke up 70, still 50% is not there. When the completion of some anatomical portion of central nervous system. We will also okay. In previous classes, we have seen this synapse. So what we will see, what are the topics that we will see? Very easy topics, basic topic like synapse, receptor, pain pathway. So we will see some small topics along with this GIT and endocrine. So our first target is to complete the endocrine system, GIT, so that we will left with CNS and spatial senses and some small practical topics. So in previous class of synapse, we have seen that thus different aspects of the synapse, introduction, definition. So it is a connection between two neuron, the anatomical types of the synapse, exosomatic, exodendritic, exoaxonal, then difference between chemical and electrical synapse, and then how exactly the potential is different from action potential. There is a formation of graded potential, and this is the typical synapse view of synapse, what we have seen in previous class. Then we have seen the biological molecule, that is neurotransmitter, which is important for the transmission of action potential, or you can say the message from presynaptic terminal to the postsynaptic terminal. Then you can see we have seen the different classification of neurotransmitter, the applied aspect of neurotransmitter, that is the different drugs which act on the receptors of this neurotransmitter. Then the mechanism of working of this synapse. How exactly there will be the formation of excitatory and inhibitory potentials over this postsynaptic membrane, then inactivation of the neurotransmitter, and then how this excitatory and inhibitory postsynaptic potential is important for the rest of the action which will be drawn by that definitive synapse. So there is excitatory and inhibitory postsynaptic potentials. Then we have seen this diagram where there will be you can see this graded potentials. This graded potentials when they can only be converted, or they can be termed as only action potential when they cross the threshold potential. So if there is only firing of 4 or 8 synapse, there will be, you will be find that there will be only formation of some potentials will be there, but they will not be in the form of action potential. And as one of the property of the synapses, there is temporal summation and spatial summation. So temporal summation means you can see this neuron where it is stimulated by A, B and C neuron differently, and when you stimulate a single neuron, that is A neuron, continuously for more frequency or more time, that is called as temporal summation. Means you are taking single neuron and you are continuously stimulating that neuron, so that is a temporal summation. Spatial summation means when you are stimulating A neuron and simultaneously B neuron. So their effect will get added. This is called as spatial summation. So whenever you see any response from any neuronal activity, it is a summation of, or it is a collection from the as temporal summation also and spatial summation also. Now one of the property for this synapse is, another one property is inhibition. Now here you can see in this diagram, this blue afferent neurons, you can see these are the efferent neurons which is coming from brain towards the effector organ, that is muscle. So when this neuron is stimulating when this neuron is stimulated, or when you tap this you can say patellar tendon in the knee reflex, you can see when you tap this tendon, it will be sensed by this proprioceptors, and there will be stretching of this muscle spindle, and this afferent sensation will be coming to this anterior horn. This is anterior horn, and then again with interneuron connection, it will be going to the afferent neurons towards the again effector organ, that is muscle, and the reflex will be drawn. Okay, this is the knee reflex. This is the knee reflex. So you can see the synaptic property, how the significance of synaptic property is there. So, and this is in inhibition. So as soon as there is stimulation, or this action potential traverses from this afferent neuron toward this anterior horn cell, there is also along with this interneuron, it also stimulates a pathway or a spinal nerve which is going to flexure muscles of the your this lower limb, or you can say knee, flexure muscles of knee. So what this is doing, there is stimulation or there is effect of knee reflex, so that there can be only extension. It has to inhibit this flexure muscle, so it also simultaneously inhibit the flexure compartment. So this is called as direct inhibition. So you can see here, this is inhibitory interneuron. So while it is integrating with this efferent neurons, it also give another pathway or another neuron, which is, so there can be a good extension without any inhibition from the flexor muscle. So this type of effect is called as direct inhibition. Now again there is another type of inhibition, that is called as indirect inhibition. So here you can see indirect inhibition, and there is a typical neuron which play a very important role in indirect inhibition, that is called as Renshaw cell neuron. Now this Renshaw cell neuron, I think you all are getting my voice. Yes. Not audible? It's a patellar tendon in the knee reflex. You can see when you tap this tendon, it will be sensed by this proprioceptors. And you are not able to hear me? Stretching of this muscle spindle. And so you can hear me or not? Sensation will be coming to this anterior horn. This is anterior horn, and then again with the direction, it will be going to the afferent neurons towards the again effector organ, that is muscle, and the reflex will be drawn. Okay. Now it is audible. This is the knee reflex. This is the knee reflex. So you can see the synaptic property. You can hear me now. How the significance of audio will not be there when I am not talking. No. Now you can hear me. No audio. Also stimulate a pathway or a spinal nerve. You can hear me now. Which is going to inhibit the which muscle? Flexion. The muscles of the your this lower limb, or you can say knee. Like muscles of knee. So what this reflex is doing, or the synapse is doing, there is a stimulation, or there is effect of knee reflex, so that there can be only extension. It has to inhibit this flexure muscle. So it also simultaneously inhibit the flexure compartment. So this is called as direct inhibition. So you can see here, this is inhibitory interneuron. So what it is integrating with this efferent. Okay, we will continue with this. It also give another pathway or another neuron which is inhibiting flexion. So second type of, or you can say another type of inhibition is indirect inhibition. This is indirect inhibition, and this indirect inhibition is again of two types. One is called as feedback inhibition, and second one is feed forward inhibition. Now in feedback inhibition, you can see this diagram. So first we have seen direct inhibition. Here you can see this one is direct inhibition. Okay, and direct means one interneuron, means this spinal reflex at this this is the center of spinal reflex. You can see here. Towards the again effector organ, that is muscle, and the reflex will be drawn. Okay, this is the knee reflex. This is the knee. Now one of the property for this synapse is, another one property is inhibition. Now here you can see in this diagram, this blue afferent neurons. You can see these are the efferent neurons. is coming from brain towards the effector organ, that is muscle. So when this neuron is stimulating, or when you tap this particular technique. Okay. So you can see now. So this is the inhibition, post-synaptic inhibition. One type is direct, another one is indirect. In indirect, you can see again there are two types. One is, you can see, feedback inhibition and feed forward inhibition. No voice, you are not able to hear. आवाज नहीं आ रहा है।
आवाज नहीं आ रहा है?
हाँ, वो एफसीसी में आवाज नहीं आ रहा है बोल रहे।
ओके, मैं आता हूँ, देखता हूँ।
देखो। So you people can see in, or isn't it audible in? इसमें एफसीसी में आवाज़ नहीं आ रही।
स्टूडेंट्स को नहीं आ रहा है?
नहीं, इसमें आ रहा है, यूट्यूब में आ रहा है।
ऑडियो ऑन
ये ऑन नहीं है क्या?
ज्वाइन विद कंप्यूटर आईडी।
ये तो उसमें कैसे आ रहा था फिर?
किसमें? यूट्यूब में।
हाँ,
यूट्यूब में तो आएगा ना सर।
तभी तो मैं अभी तक मैं देखा ही नहीं, फिर अभी अल्टर करके देखा तो ये मैसेज
यूट्यूब पे आएगा।
तो ये चालू नहीं रहा होगा।
हाँ, ये चालू नहीं था यूट्यूब पे, लेकिन आएगा।
तो करूँ, क्या हो गया? ज्वाइन
यूट्यूब पे एज इट इज आएगा, मैं जो बोल रहा हूँ वो भी आएगा। वीडियो से थोड़ा स्लो हो जाता है। वीडियो से नहीं, वीडियो से थोड़ा स्लो हो जाता है।
वीडियो, हाँ,
उससे थोड़ा स्लो हो जाता है।
तो ये इसी को बंद करोगे? इसको
बंद कर दो।
अभी फिर शेयर करना पड़ेगा?
नहीं नहीं,
हो गया,
ऑलरेडी सही है, आवाज़ आ गया होगा।
नाउ यू कैन हियर मी। Is it audible now? ये तो बंद नहीं हो
इसमें प्रॉपर आता है। ऑफ कर दो close।
कौन सा क्लोज वीडियो है ना ये ऐसे होता है क्या ये?
ये move हो रहा है सॉफ्टवेयर का थोड़ा सा इसमें।
Okay, we will start then.
इसमें कंटिन्यू रखिए।
Hmm. So post synaptic inhibition, now we can little bit. So till now till this slide we have seen already in previous class. So we are now going to see the properties of synapse. So first property is inhibition. Inhibition means there is a obstruction in this process, or you can say it want to block the ongoing process, or this action potential which is created, it will not be generated. So that is how this inhibition will be there. Or in synapse, some synaptic inhibition means there will not be release of acetylcholine, or there will not be transfer of action potential from presynaptic terminal to the postsynaptic terminal. That will be the inhibition. Now inhibition can be of two types. One is direct and direct inhibition. You can see this is direct inhibition with we can see that with the reflex arc. You know reflex arc, this is this is afferent, this is afferent, this is efferent, this is central processor, and this is the effector organ. In this direct inhibition, you can see there is an interneuron which can directly inhibiting the antagonistic muscle, which is not supporting the extension, or which is not supporting the in this reflex. So this is called as direct inhibition, because some sort of neuron is coming from this and it is inhibiting this antagonistic muscle. This is direct inhibition. Now another type of inhibition is indirect inhibition. Another type of inhibition is indirect inhibition. And in indirect inhibition there is a significant role of this typical type of neuron, you can say. They are called as Renshaw cell neuron. So you can see these are the Renshaw cell neuron. These are the Renshaw cell neuron. So it is written over there, Renshaw cell neuron. So this is the Renshaw cell neuron. Now again there are two types of this postsynaptic inhibition, that is of indirect type. Indirect type, there are also two types. One is feedback inhibition. You can see this is a feedback inhibition. Another one is feed forward inhibition. Another one is feed forward inhibition. Now in feedback inhibition, you can see now this is a neuron from which there will be this ultimate in this diagram you can see our purpose of action is there will be flex. So when you stimulate this neuron, there has to be flexion, and here with this neuronal circuit we can understand the two types of indirect inhibition, that is feedback inhibition and feed forward inhibition. Now you can see this neuron is stimulating this two type of neuron which are stimulating the agonist muscle, that is a flexor muscle. So this one neuron and this another neuron is, when it gets stimulated, it is stimulating the agonist muscle. Okay. Now what is feedback inhibition? When there is enough flexion action, these neurons get inhibited by themselves by stimulating a neuron that is called as Renshaw cell neuron. Means when it is, this action potential is going to this flexor muscle, some action potential is also going to this Renshaw cell, and this Renshaw cell is now inhibiting the neuron which is behind that flexor muscle, or which is going to stimulate the flexor muscle. So automatically after some time what will happen? There will be inhibition of this agonist muscles and the reflection will get completed, or there will not be further flexion. Now simultaneously, to have this flexor action very well, there has to be inhibition of the antagonist muscle. There has to be inhibition of the antagonist muscle, and that is done by feed forward inhibition. So when there is stimulation of this neuron, again there is also stimulation of the Renshaw cell, and it directly inhibit the antagonist muscle. It directly inhibit the antagonist muscle. So this is called as feed forward inhibition. This is called as feed forward. Now another type of inhibition is presynaptic inhibition. So inhibition can be presynaptically. So here you can see normally there will be, you will stimulate this neuron, and this axon will be stimulating this neuron, soma of this neuron, and the action potential will be generated, and you can record over this. But here you will see that there is no action potential generated, though you have stimulated this neuron. Now what happens? There is inhibitory release of inhibitory neurotransmitter by some of the neurons or axon which is binding over this axonal part. So when there is a stimulation of this inhibitory neuron, you will see that stimulatory transmitters are not released. So there is no formation of action potential, and there will not, you will not get any action potential. So this is called as, such type of inhibition is called as presynaptic inhibition, because it is occurring before the synapse. It is occurring presynaptically. I think now you are getting my voice. Another property is facilitation. So this is presynaptic facilitation. Now you can see facilitation means augmentation or increasing the action of that particular synapse. Now how it happens, you can see when the action potential is reaching at this presynaptic knob, you will see that there is a release of neurotransmitter. It acts on the postsynaptic terminal, and this effect will be drawn. Now here in presynaptic terminal, you will see that there are some another neurotransmitter, or it is synapsing with the another axon which is releasing the serotonin, or you can say another type of neurotransmitter. Now these release of serotonin will increase the calcium entry at this presynaptic terminal, and that will cause the release of more amount of neurotransmitter into this synaptic cleft, and it will have the action for more duration. This is called as presynaptic facilitation. This is called as presynaptic facilitation. So this is one of the property, and which is important for the memory memory as a physiological function. So you will see that presynaptic facilitation is important for the and we have seen there's propagation of action potential and propagation of action potential in one way direction, right? From this there is a initiation of this action potential from this axon hillock, and it will go always in one direction. That is we have seen, that is orthodromic transmission of this action potential. Another one this generation of action potential we have covered already in this general physiology. Now another property is divergence and convergence. So what do you mean by divergence and convergence of the synapse or synaptic terminals? You can see this for example corticospinal tract. So from central nervous system this neuronal fiber is coming, and it is getting or synapse with the multiple neuronal fibers, so that it can distribute its you can say information to lot of muscles or to the lot of different organs. So this is called as divergence. So means single neuron is synapting with the, or it getting diverted into multiple neurons. So it is one, here it is two, and you can see here it is 6 neuron, it is getting diverged. So this is called as divergence. Neuron is converging or synapting over the single neuron. So this is for example spinal motor neuron. So it is converging at a single motor neuron. So this is convergence and divergence. Law of forward conduction means it will always conduct these impulses towards the it will generate from this axon hillock, and it will be going through axon toward the dendrites. Synaptic delay, there will be minimum period of 0.3 to 0.5 milliseconds for the delay of the this action potential, and this is estimated differently for different neuron, and mostly the cause will be release of neurotransmitter, action on postsynaptic receptors, change in the permeability of ions, influx of sodium, and the action of transmission of action potential from that place towards the presynaptic terminal. So this will be the reasons for the synaptic delay. Now this property we have seen, summation, that is a temporal summation and spatial summation. You can see this A, B, so differently this neuron is stimulated by A neuron and B neuron separately, you can see. Now when you continuously stimulate a single neuron, that is a B neuron, then that is a tempo summation or a temporal summation, and when you stimulate both A and B neuron, that is a spatial summation. So you can see the significance, physiological significance of spatial summation. So this spatial summation is important to get a stronger stimulus. So if it is weak stimulus, means only few numbers of different fibers are getting stimulated. If it is moderate, then the number is increasing. If it is strong, then there are multiple or many number of neurons are getting stimulated. That is the spatial summation. Temporal means at a single frequency you are getting the strength of that stimulus. Now integration, here you can see this here you can see synaptic integration. So here this neuron, blue neuron, is stimulated by A, B, D and E neuron, or basically this B is getting stimulated by the E neuron. So when you stimulate D neuron, you will get, if it is inhibitory one, you will get this negative postsynaptic potential. If it is B1, that is a positive excitatory postsynaptic potential, you will get a positive response. When you stimulate both B and D, you will get such sort of response separately, but you combinedly, if you are stimulating B and D, this it will get summated, means the both average will be lesser. Now if you are stimulating B and E, that is the synaptic, or you can say facilitation, means both are stimulating this blue neuron, so it will be, the response will be there for more time, it will be for more duration rather than the previous response. You can see this facilitation zone. So this is the input nerve fiber. The discharge zone, actually it is stimulating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 neuron, but this zone which is out of this discharge zone, it is having some it will be getting some signals, or it will be getting some action potential from this input nerve fibers, and this zone is called as facilitated zone. And this facilitation can be done with the calcium, entry of calcium ions, or there can be release of neurotransmitter, that is serotonin. Okay, you can see this is the facilitation, synaptic facilitation. Another one property is the occlusion. Now you can see what do you mean by this occlusion. We can understand this occlusion property by this diagram, where you can see these are A and B neuron, and this A and B neuron are stimulating to this different 10 number of neurons. So you can see this A neuron is stimulating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 neurons. Okay. So when you stimulate A neuron, you will get that there will be response, or there will be stimulation of this 10 neuron. Simultaneously, when you stimulate this B neuron, you will see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You will get the response from this 10. Now here with this 5 neuron, you can see that they are stimulated by both A and B. Okay. So when you stimulate A neuron separately, B neuron separately, and when the response will be 10 plus 10, 20 neurons. Okay. But when you simultaneously stimulate A and B neuron continuously, how many number of this neuron you will be stimulating? You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15. So when you stimulate A and B neuron simultaneously, continuously for both, you will get only 15 responses. So this is called as occlusion. They have occluded these 5 neurons, and the result is lesser than the when they stimulated separately. This is called as property of occlusion. Because and in see that there are lot of neurons, there are multiple number of neurons, So they are arranged in a fashion that a neuron can stimulate 10, 20, 30 or 100 number of neurons. Simultaneously, B neuron can stimulate 100 or 200 neuron, and there can be some number of neuron which can be stimulated from both A and B. So when you stimulate A separately, you will get the response from 10. When you stimulate B separately, you will get the response, that is 10. But you stimulate both A and B, this is called as occlusion. Now similar type of property which is confusing with this occlusion is subliminal fringe or subminimal fringe. But the name is same, subliminal, or you can call it as subminimal. Subminimal. Okay, so this is called as subliminal fringe. Now again we will see that with the example. Suppose neuron and B neuron. Now you can see this A neuron is stimulating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 neuron. Yes. And this B neuron is also stimulating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 neuron. Okay. So when you stimulate this A neuron, this is stimulating this presynaptic terminal or presynaptic neuron. 7 neuron will get stimulated, but you can see this on postsynaptic terminal. This 5 neurons will get stimulated, but this threshold potential, because they need stimulation from 2 neurons or more potential they need so that they can cross the threshold potential. Okay, so when you you will get response from this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 neurons. So the response will be, when you separately stimulate A, the response will be 5. When you separately stimulate B, you will get a response that is 5. Now, but what will happen? A and B. So the number of neuron when you stimulate A and B, this 5 will definitely get stimulated. This 5 will also get stimulated, that is 10. Now here you can see, as you are stimulating A and B, and these 2 neurons, now they can cross the threshold barrier, so they will also respond. So when you stimulate A and B, you will get a response that is 12. So now you can call as this this group of neuron under the subliminal fringe of A and B neuron. So when you stimulate A and B, you will get here, you will get here 3. When you get stimulate B, here you will get only 3. Here when you stimulate A only, you will get 5 response. When you get stimulate B, you will get 5 response. But when you stimulate A and B, you will get the response that is number 12. So this is subliminal fringe. Or axon which binding over this axonal path. So when there is stimulation of this neuron, you see that stimulatory transmitters are not released, so there is no formation of activity. Before the presynaptic. augmentation or increasing the action of that particular synapse. Now how it happens is when this action potential synaptic knob ठीक है ठीक है action for more called as pre-synaptic action called as pre-synaptic facility. So this is one of the properties which is important for the memory. Okay. Memory as a physiological function. You will see that pre-synaptic facility. Okay. Next property will be fatigue. So now you can hear. Propagation of action, initiation and propagation of action from the initiation of this action potential. Okay, so next property will be fatigue. Okay. So what do you think there can be fatigability or fatigue in synapse? What can be the causes for fatigue in synapse? You can tell me. Why there can be fatigue? Now another property is divergence and convergence. So what do you mean by divergence and convergence of that? So you can see fatigue, repeated stimulation of excitatory neurons at a rapid rate decreases the number of discharges progressively. So when you are continuously stimulating a neuron, so after some times it will get fatigue, and the common cause will be the exhaustion of the neurotransmitter. So all the neurotransmitter will get exhausted. There will be progressive inactivation of postsynaptic receptors. So receptors will get inactivated. There will be slow build-up of abnormal concentration of ions in postsynaptic membrane. So as there is a development of excitatory or inhibitory postsynaptic potentials, so it will take some time to come that action potential back into the resting membrane form. These are the reasons you can see that can cause the fatigue in the synapse. So, another property is plasticity. plasticity is capacity of synapse being get changed. Okay, so the synapse as it is a neuronal sort of circuit, so it get adapted, it get changed by time, and on the basis of why it get changes, on the basis of past experience of the synaptic conduction. So either after some time you will see that their conduction is either increasing day by day or it is getting decrease, and this plasticity is important for learning and memory. So if a person, if he can learn or memorize the different things at the time, that is because of its neuronal plasticity. It is because of the neuronal plasticity. So this neuronal plasticity is a capacity of the synapse to get change with time, and this is important in learning and memory. Now what happens when this neuroplasticity, it can be, this neuroplasticity can be synaptic, that is what we are discussing over here, and there can be structural neuroplasticity. So the changes can be in synapse or it can be in the neuronal structural changes can be there. So and again it can, I have told you, it can be increase in the potentials, so it can increase the neuronal activity or it can decrease. So person can get depressed, or not person, you can say synapses, it can get depressed or it can get potentially activated. So this is called as potentiation, and another one is depression. So synaptic potentiation is there is increase in the, either there can be increase in the neuronal receptor, there can be increase in the neuronal transmitter by day. That is how we learn. When you try to remember one thing on first day, when you try to remember the same thing or try to learn that same thing on second day, there will be decrease in the time, and that decrease in the time is because of the potentiation of the neuronal synapses or neuronal circuits. So this is called as potentiation. Structurally, how that potentiation can be, there can be increase in the neuronal sprouting. So there can be increase in the number of neurons, there can be increase in the number of synapses, that will increase the potentiation and ultimately will increase the neuronal plasticity. Now there can be depression or decrease in the neuronal response, and that may be because now here you can see there is a decrease in neurotransmitter receptor, there is also decrease in the neurotransmitter release. So that can happen, that can cause the synaptic depression. Structurally, there can be degeneration or destruction of the neuronal circuits, neurons, synapse or postsynaptic terminal, and there will be neuroplasticity, that will be in the form of depression. So this is the neuronal plasticity. And we have already seen there are a lot of drugs which act on the synapses, and mostly they can act presynaptically, they can act on calcium channels, they can act on vesicles, they can be agonist of the neurotransmitter, they can help these vesicles to a release of neurotransmitter. There are some you can say this neurotransmitter, some of the drugs can directly act on the neurotransmitter receptors to increase their action. Okay, so some of the drugs which we have discussed at the time of when we have discussed the neurotransmitter. And some of the drugs you can see here, these are the toxin, that is tetrodotoxin, zoro spider toxin, botulinum toxin, curare toxin, and anticholinesterases. They can act on this neurotransmitter or this synapses on the neurotransmitter. And this neuronal circuit we have seen. You can say this input and output. These are the different types of circuits. You can see that will be there in our central nervous system. So you can say input A, there will be output. Input, this single neuron is getting stimulating to this neuron, can inhibit its own pathway. You can see it is stimulating to the different circuits. You can see it is facilitating to the another circuit. So this is the path of facilitation, self inhibition and feed forward inhibition. And you will see that such multiple number of circuits which is getting formed, and ultimately they form a neuronal pool. So our central nervous system or brain is a sort of neuronal pool where there are trillions of neurons are there, and they are synapses with the another neuron, axons or dendrites, and they are ultimately forming and making all this property to get done. Okay, so we will complete here, or we conclude our this synaptic session over here. In next class we will see some, you can say, some sort of receptors. Okay.